did you know that 40% of households make their hot water using electricity?
Really? I thought it was 41.
All right, I rounded.
Well, it makes good sense. In many parts of this country, electricity is the most cost-effective way to make hot water. Many people don't have a choice of gas or oil. And sometimes you just can't get the flue products up and out of the building, into the chimney or outside.
So an electric water heater is not going to have a flue coming
Right.
up out through the center?
Right. You can put it just about anywhere.
Okay.
So I thought today we'd do a little anatomy lesson.
I love your cutaways.
Now, this is a unit that came back from a recent project. Electric water heater like this is a glass-lined steel tank.
And that glass lining helps preserve this tank from rusting.
Right, and keep it from rusting, okay? Cold water comes into the tank through the top right here, but it goes inside of this dip tube and introduces itself into the bottom of the tank.
And the hot water naturally wants to be up here in the top half of the tank.
That's right, and that's where it leaves the tank, right through this tapping right here, and goes out to the faucets.
Gotcha.
Okay, now inside the tank, there's also this rod. This is called an anode
I
rod.
remember you telling us about this. This also helps preserve the tank because this wants to corrode before the glass liner.
Very good. That's a sacrificial anode rod. Now, electricity comes in here, 220 volts. Comes down into this point right here, and now it comes down and either goes to one of two elements.
So these elements are actually what makes the water hot?
That's right. There's one at the top and one right down here at the bottom.
Okay.
Okay? So what brings these units on is a thing called a thermostat. And it sits right here. And let me show you what it looks like close up. This thing sits and touches the wall of that steel tank, the
So it's
outside
actually
wall.
reading the temperature of the
That's
water
right.
inside?
So you set it for about 125. You don't want to go much higher. You don't want to scald anybody.
Gotcha.
Okay? Now, when it says I need to heat up the tank, it sends voltage, 110 volts to each of these wires to this element right here. Now, always the first element to come on is the top element.
Yep.
It will do what it can, and once that's satisfied, it'll now bring on the lower one.
Okay, so good anatomy lesson. What typical problems can I expect with an electric water heater?
When people complain about no hot water, don't overlook the obvious. It could be that there's no power coming from the electrical circuit panel. But if you prove that you are getting power into the water heater and you still don't have either element on, I would look at this. Right above the thermostat is a thing called an ECO, an emergency cutoff, right here. And so this is designed to act as a safety.
Yeah.
That you set this for 125, and if this ever didn't work and you kept on heating up the water, this would feel the temperature. Once it got to 170, it would pop this button out and knock out both the elements. And you can only get it on by resetting right here.
So you're saying if both elements are out, that's what would cause no hot water. What if one element were out?
Well, you're going to have one of two symptoms. You're either going to have lukewarm hot water. You're just getting it's just not enough, and that means one of the elements is out. Or you can have the complaint of, I get plenty of hot water, but not enough anymore. And that means it might just be that the lower element is out. The top one is only heating the top, in this case, 40 gallons.
We go through that.
That's right, and then it goes to cold.
Gotcha, okay. So how do I determine which element is broken, and can I fix them?
Well, you can't fix them, but you can test them, and you can replace them.
Okay.
They make replaceable elements. There's a couple of choices. One is made out of copper, and one is made out of stainless steel. You can see this has one loop right here. This one has one loop, but is much longer and actually is doubled back on itself. Now, I prefer this one for two reasons. One is stainless steel, and the other is this larger surface area should make it last longer.
Okay, great. So how do we test it? Obviously, here's an old busted up one. How do we know if this is working or not?
Well, if there was a lot of minerals on this element, you kept on putting voltage in here, it could make this element break, and that means there would be no continuity, no ability for current to travel through this element.
How do we know?
So we're going to test it with this. This is a continuity tester. So if the light comes on, it means that it's good, and that one is good.
Okay, so that's good.
Okay. If I was in the field, I would want to make sure I turned off the electricity to the water heater first. Then I would want to disconnect the electrical wires.
So this thing that I'm looking at right here is actually the back end of this element?
Exactly, facing just like that.
Gotcha.
Yep. Okay.
So we disconnect
So
everything,
we'll test this one.
and again, it's working.
Yep.
Let's say it wasn't.
Okay. Well, they make a wrench, a socket wrench, that is made expressly for changing this element. That fits on here.
Great.
You would go counterclockwise.
We're obviously going to want to drain the tank once we get to
Yeah,
this
you'll
point.
learn. Actually, when the water shoots out, you know it was time. You were too late.
All right, let me get that out.
That goes there.
I'll work that.
That was a little gunky.
Yeah, that one's kind of beat up.
All right, and the new one comes with a gasket as well. The other tip I will tell you is if you go to the trouble of draining the tank and putting in the new element, you should also put in a new thermostat and ECO at the same time.
Great, Richard. Now 40% of America knows what's going on in their basement.
That's right.